Hey, this is Oteil. If you're liking what you're hearing, head on over to patreon.com/comesatimepod and get your bus pass for an extra episode every week.
Welcome back to another episode of Comes a Time. I am Mike Finoia.
I'm Oteil. I don't want to brag, but man,
We're kind of killing it.
these episodes are just like the guests. So thank you, God. Thank you, universe. Thank you, Mother Nature. Thank you, everything. Because I'll let you tell.
Well, Ken Babbs, one of the original Merry Pranksters, Ken Kesey's partner in crime, his writing partner, his best friend, joins us today. I consider it one of the biggest honors of my entire life, even knowing this man, let alone having the ability to be friends with him and text with him and chat with him throughout the past, 2001. I was out there, met him in 97 at a Fish concert when the Pranksters came on stage with Fish at Darien Lake, New York. And the bus pulled into the parking lot. And one of my friends kind of nonchalantly was like, the Pranksters just pulled in. And I pushed everybody out of the way, grabbed my girlfriend, ran down to the bus, and Kesey kicked the emergency door open and was like, whoa, and just like announced himself, and I was just standing there in awe, I said, can I come on the bus? And they, of course you could come on the bus. Everybody could come on the, and we walked on. It was the replica bus, and got to meet Ken and the Kens. And Kesey gave me a business card for Intrepid Trips with his email and phone number. And they went on stage with Fish and told a story about, for 2 years, the Bozos have been missing. Where are the Bozos? And they heard they were going to be here at the Fish concert. It was 2 years from when Jerry died. Wow. So it was almost, I took it as them saying, like, you guys are the next, the next pack. And got in touch with Kesey, went out and interviewed him. Spent time on his farm, got to know Ken, his kids, Ken Babbs, his kids, the family. And then Kesey passed, and Babbs and I kept in touch. And when I went out and did comedy at Helium in Portland in 2019, I drove down and visited him and his wife at the farm. And we hung out, and it was like just the openness and the welcoming and all of that. It's just fits in with the throughput of everything we've talked about on this podcast. And, what Mountain Girl said early on about that, if you're available and if you're, in tune in that right frequency, the Kens that, bring you right on board. So I'm so happy to have him on and to help with anything that he's working on. Everybody needs to hear more of it.
He reminds me so much of Colonel Bruce, man. I just got that feeling. They're just that same age, and, they don't look like the crazy, wild mofos that they are.
That's right.
They look very kind of, you wouldn't think much if you were sitting down at, see him at the grocery store or whatever, It's just like,
no. That's one of the beautiful things about Kesey, too, that I forget what I was listening to, but, he wouldn't mind just hopping off the bus and getting right in and, rapping with the cops or what, what I mean? And putting them at ease. 'Cause they're like, oh, this person, this white guy seems like trustworthy. You know what I mean? Meanwhile,
just a normal guy.
Yeah, meanwhile, nope. Meanwhile, the whole world's just getting tweaked just a couple degrees. So it's an honor. I'm glad that we were able to chat with him, and it's, we'll have him back for sure. And thank you, Ken. It's an honor to chat with you anytime. And thank you guys for listening to another episode. We're here on Osiris, home to so many great podcasts. Check them out at osirispod.com. And if you're looking to get deep, we've got some holes for you to step in over at Patreon. So patreon.com/comesatimepod. Join Oteil, myself, the Wizard. We've got a lot of great stuff happening over there. So enjoy Babbs, and see you wherever.
Peace.
We've been very excited to get you on. We've had so many incredible guests from all the way to Mountain Girl and Parrish and Bobby and Mickey and everybody. And we couldn't wait to have you on because we've been talking about this lineage and family and how it all starts with just availability and being open to the experiences and the moments. And who better to start with than you to talk about that?
Well, thank you. That's good to be here. We were talking about Bill Walton a minute ago, and at one point in the basketball game, right in the middle of the basketball game, he was talking about Eugene, and it all started here with Ken Kesey, and then he met Ken Babbs, and then they started up with the Grateful Dead and got that going, and then it's joined and it's become a huge Deadhead crowd. And the other guy says, Bill, this is a basketball game.
And Bill's like, all roads lead back to Terrapin.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
He's like, one more Saturday night, ESPN. He's amazing. I've had the chance to be far enough behind him that he's not blocking my view of the band, and I just watch him, and he's like a lighthouse. Like he's like a beacon of energy, like everybody. I feel like Oteil, I don't care how far back he is, you must see him on stage some nights.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, when they light up the audience, which is usually when there's some big thing the band does. And it's like, bling, and then the lights come up and you see Bill like that, It's great.
Ken, one of the things that has been coming up quite a bit in conversations off air, on air, is the magic of Palo Alto. It's something that Oteil's been like, we've been kind of thinking about how all the roads lead to Terrapin is Palo Alto Terrapin? Like so many things happened back in like the early 60s with you guys in Palo Alto. And I just wanted to ask you a little bit about just that scene then. Did you feel it in the air? Did you know that things were extremely important on all levels in that part of the country?
Well, no, you don't know that when it's happening. You only get that as a rear view. But when it's happening, it's happening for you and all your friends. And the magic was happening there when Ken Kesey and I met in the writing class at Stanford. And he lived in a neat little place. It was called Perry Lane. It was actually across the street from the golf course and in the little town of Menlo Park. But there were all these little cottages connected with trails and trees and everything. And artists and all those kind of people lived there. In fact, a drummer lived there. I can't remember his name, but he taught Bill Kreutzmann how to play the drums. He lived in one of the cabins there. Yeah.
Wow.
I know, he was a terrific guy. But there was Roy Seaburn, the artist, and Jane Burton, a big Texas philosopher woman, and Chloe Scott, the dance woman. And so anyway, Kesey, with his magnetism and his personality, drew people to his place. And so that's where we'd meet on Saturday nights. And in those days, we hadn't even smoked pot yet. And
BC, before cannabis.
Yeah, right. That's good. Now we're all AC.
AC for sure.
DC.
Oh yeah. We're ADMT, LSD.
Right. You ain't kidding. So anyway, we drink, red wine and play the bongos and the guitars and sing folk songs and just rap with one another, everything. And one time, Alan Trist, who lived down in this place called the Chateau, down the hill from Kesey, brought over these 4 guys and introduced them around and everything and talked and all that. And they left, and someone asked Kesey, who were those guys anyway? And he says, I don't know, some hairy musicians.
Hairy musicians.
But we got to know the guys, Bill and Bobby and Phil and Pigpen and Jerry, from being around there, where they played in the coffee houses and stuff like that in Palo Alto. And that's where the Palo Alto gang met, at the coffee house. What was that called? I can't remember. But then they, yeah, I wish I could remember. My memory's gone, I have to tell you, but it's okay. You know why? Because like Timothy Leary said, if you can remember it, then you weren't there.
Yeah, that's right. Very true.
Yeah, I saw the drug years. They said I was one of the chief imbibers, but I can't even remember.
Then it worked.
Yeah, it worked good. Yeah, that puts you in the moment where you're supposed to be. So we got to know the guys, and the first time that we really did something together was I had a Halloween party at my place. Later on, this was I lived in Santa Cruz. Oh, because so much happened between all that. Kesey wrote his books. I went in the Marine Corps. I came out. We took the bus across the country and back. And so this was like in 66, I think it was. Yeah, Halloween. Maybe it was 65. I think it was 65. And I had a Halloween party, and we were all set up with our instruments because the Merry Band of Pranksters is an actual band. You know, we all play instruments. I played the trombone, and Kesey played the clarinet, and George played the drums, and Gretchen Fetchen played the piano, and Mike Hagan played the other guitar, and Kesey played his guitar too, and we all sang, but we didn't know any songs. We did a form of music called some kind of connection and exchange without words. But it was good because it meant we each had to hear what the other was doing and answer that person. You know, musicians today mostly play their part and don't pay much attention to what, shouldn't say this about all musicians, but a lot of bands are like this. They play their parts and they're not really paying any attention to what the other guy's doing. They know it by heart. But we never knew anything by heart, so we had to listen to each other. And this has become really the real talent of things when you're grooving with musicians. And I still like to play with various bands. One of my favorite is Terrapin Flyer from Chicago, because Melvin Seals always plays with them. And to me, Melvin to me is the greatest. I mean, he is the greatest. Because one of the things about the prankster music also is that we always go out. You know, we go out where nobody's ever been before, and we've never been before. And, you know, and the Grateful Dead, they did that in their, you know, what is it called? I can't remember, the drums or space.
Drums and space, yeah.
Yeah, space. So this is the other thing with Melvin is when he goes out farther and longer and harder than any other person I've ever heard. When he gets done, you know, everybody just wilted out there in the audience.
So amazing. He is a force for sure.
I do. So anyway, we're having this party at our house, and my house, and we're all set up with our equipment, our instruments and everything, and we're high. And so we went outside to commune with the moon, and we were all holding hands out there and oming and rising up off the ground 3 or 4 feet and hovering. And all of a sudden, this noise came out of the house. Wow, what is that? And we crashed down to the ground and went running in. And here they all were playing our instruments, singing and playing and coming on. So we listened for a while, then we kind of sidled in, and we'd pick up something and play along and all that. And so it went all night long like that until the wee hours when we were all tired out, and we laid down on the floor. We all had the microphones, and we were lying there, and George Walker happened to say, he says, "What do you guys think it's like on the other side?" And so Neil Cassidy, well, you know, lapsed Catholic and all that. He says, "I gotta believe in it. I mean, but of course I don't want to mess around. Purgatory? Get out of here." He says, "I want derogatory." Okay, so what do you think, Babbs? I said, "Well, you know, I'm willing to take whatever happens. I mean, nobody's ever been there and came back and told us." and so we're around like that. And finally got to Allen Ginsberg, and Ginsberg says, Well, he says like this. He says, there was a chicken walking along the road, and he looks over, and across the road is another chicken. And he asks the other chicken, he says, how do you get to the other side? Chicken looks at him and says, you're on the other side. So at dawn, we, of course, broke up and everybody went home. And over a period of time of 100 or 200 years, people call that the first acid test. Yeah. And so we let that slide, because, you know, the beautiful thing about what we're talking about, in fact, all of life, is a myth. And as you move forward, then whatever you did is added to the myth. And so now, anybody or anything that happens that talks about those days that we're talking about now, the first days. Oh, there's my phone. I got to turn that off. Yeah. Okay. So where was I? Oh, anything that people talk about now adds to the myth. Like, I don't know how many people have come up and told me that they were on the bus that went to New York and back. And I said, oh, yeah, sure, right. You know, and I think later, if all the people that said that were lined up, they'd make a line from here to Chicago.
That's a bigger bus than you thought.
Oh, longer. And so anyway, the myth is growing like a mountain, growing up to a point like that. And over the years, all the baloney and all the false stuff will slough off until it'll be this shiny, golden pyramid sort of shape. And that will be the real story. That'll be like 2,000 years from now. And somebody of that day, like Homer, will write the story. And that's the one I want to read.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's why we have you on here, because, you know, when you have the privilege and the opportunity and a blessing to have the living history straight from the horse's mouth.
Man. Oh, God, that woke my dog up. He's coming over here to check this out.
Rare. That's awesome.
But you know, that's true. And as I get older, you know, I become fewer in my numbers of friends that are still telling the story. But it's good. And so I took it upon myself to write this big book called Cronies. It's like 580 pages long. And it starts with me meeting Kesey at Palo Alto there at Stanford in 1959 and ends with him dying in 2001. And it covers the adventures that we had with Cassidy and the pranksters and the dead and all our friends. And each chapter is a story in itself that tells something. And then the next chapter tells something. It's not like a traditional book. So as a result, I haven't been able to find a publisher for over a year. Gone through like, I don't know, 50 publishers, because they don't see it as being a big seller, because they don't know about us. People in big business, they don't know we exist. They don't know the millions of us that are out here in this country not participating in any of the cranky, dumb stuff that's going on, but keeping the spirit alive with our music and our dance and our stories and our behavior to one another. How we are a huge army. And they don't know, but that's my audience for my book.
And that's why we want, that's, you know, I've been talking nonstop about my visit out to see you the last time when I was in Oregon doing stand up, and I came to visit you for the day. And you said so many amazing things that have really made an imprint on me. And anything that we could do to help spread I think self-publishing that book, and getting it out to the, you know, like, we should have a conversation afterwards about making this happen, because
it's almost in the work. Freddie Hahn, our old prankster buddy, who's been on the bus with us for all our trips, is in San Francisco, and he does this. He puts together the book, and right now he's putting together this book. Kesey and I did a series of small literary magazines in the 70s called Spit in the Ocean.
Yes.
And Spit in the Ocean #6 is called the Cassidy issue, and I edited it. So that book is very hard to get now. And I was at Tsunami Books, our bookstore, the other day, and the owner came up with a copy of it, and he said, "Here, this guy wants you to sign it."
Wow.
And so I signed the book, and he said, "You know, that guy paid $75 for that used book." I said,
Wow.
"Oh," I said, "So, okay." So I called up Freddie, and I said, "Can you reprint this book for us?" He said, "Sure thing." He said, "Send me a copy." And I found a pristine copy that had never been opened. And I sent it to him, and he chopped off the spine and opened all the pages, scanned them all in, and now they're ready to go to the printer.
Fantastic.
So within another month, you'll all hear about the opportunity to buy Spit in the Ocean #6.
Beautiful. That's fantastic. I remember Spit Volume 7 was called All About Kesey.
Yeah,
and,
the Kesey, yeah.
The Kesey, and that was a portion of my interview with Ken was in there about when you guys went to the Jefferson Airplane show. And that was, I remember the cover. I could see it. It was him with the jester hat on. It was a nice, colorful, vivid. Yeah, this story needs to continue because it does, embody a spirit that, not that it ever slowed down, but it's definitely more vibrant than ever in a lot of ways too. The way that we can communicate these days and the discussions that are being had. One thing that I talk about with Oteil quite a bit from our visit was how something so profound you told me, and I don't even know if you realize how helpful it was, about naming the voices.
That's true. Yeah, the voice in your head.
Yeah, totally. We were talking about Alki, who's always, like, why don't you have a beer? And it's like, no, go for a run.
Exactly right. Well, this is a good point because this is the problem that's going on in the world is people with what's in their heads, they think that's real. They think what's in your head is the real thing, So you got people believing all these really crackpot things because they believe it in their head. I saw a bumper sticker that said, just because you think it doesn't mean it's true.
Right.
Yeah.
I know. So talking about this with Mike that time, I was pointing out that there are forces working on us all the time that we don't know about, coming in on us all thing. And some of them are benevolent and some of them are malevolent. And so these forces, these spirits, they want to play in our world. They don't have bodies. They see what we're doing and everything. Oh God, they're like seeing a basketball game. You want to get in there and play. And so they have found that they can worm their way into our heads in some way with some kind of emanations or whatever. And so people pick up on this stuff all the time. I mean, I do it all the time. I get a thought in my head, mostly because I read these stupid detective novels, and thrillers where bad shit's always happening. Then I get into a situation where I think, well, now if I snuck up behind that guy and with this little piece of toilet paper in my hand and whapped him across the face like with that, something like that, I think, no, shut up there. Don't think that shit. God damn it, I've told you not to do that anymore. And I said, and then you have to let a beautiful thought come in, a wonderful thought about one like, oh, there's a guy over there. He doesn't look too hot. I think he needs help. And you go over and you help him out, get him up off the gutter, brush him off a little bit and give him a couple bucks, go get a drink, and all that bad stuff is gone. So this is the secret. You can't fight evil head on. Because it gets stronger. The stronger you push evil, the harder it pushes back. So what you do is you just back off and you don't fight it. You just think good thoughts. So you embrace the wonderful stuff. And there's just no room then for the bad stuff. That's the way you keep it out. Fill it up with the good stuff.
Yep. That's what Martin Luther King said. Light drives out the darkness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, all the guys, when you think about it, I mean, even... what's his name? Alfred E. Newman. What, me worry?
That's right.
And what's his name? Baba, it says, don't worry, be happy.
That's right. Can't get more simple than that.
I know, and Neil Cassidy's one of his best lines is, nobody was ever happy angry.
I know one guy.
That's his joy.
Exactly. God had to make one, right?
Yeah, right. Just as an example.
The Ty Cobbs, yeah, give me your hate.
Oh, yeah, really? That's good. Be absorbed, you call it.
Hey Ken, would you ever consider reading your own audiobook? Because man, I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and the wrong reader can really
Totally
just ruin it. But I find that when the person that wrote it reads it, that because they have the cadence for what they wrote.
Oh, yeah, right.
Your voice is great for that, man.
Thank you. Yeah, when I get this Cronies out, I definitely am going to do the audiobook myself.
Yes.
Definitely. Yeah,
Excellent.
I did a live stream last Saturday night, the first one I've done since the COVID. The only other things I've done is like this on the computer, but this was at Tsunami Books in Eugene. Tsunami Books in Eugene is our City Lights bookstore.
Yeah.
It's just like that. And now he's getting into publishing. He's publishing my stuff, and he's going to be the distributor for Spit in the Ocean #6, the sole distributor. And anyway, this thing I did last Saturday night, I did read a chapter from my book, Cronies. And it was about the Hells Angels when they came to La Honda, and we partied with them. And then the next day went to the anti-war, the Vietnam anti-war peace rally in Berkeley on the big scene outside Sproul Hall. And that it was so funny reading that, because during our time, the same kind of stuff was going on that's going on now. The big protests against the war, and then the other side coming in and trying to break it up. And what it really amounted to was the heat and the police and the feds all in there. They didn't like either faction. So they were going to, they'd send in provocateurs into these scenes that would antagonize the other people and get a fight going. And cops could come in and beat up on the protesters. So this was the setup, see, as we're coming in there with the bus. And we've got the bus painted red, gory red, and we're all up in front with fake machine guns and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, shit.
I love it.
And park the bus and go in there. And so the Hells Angels, we knew them from that party, and we had gone to visit them the night before, Kesey and I did, in their clubhouse. And they were talking about the peace rally, that they were ready. They were going to mobilize. All the Angels were going to come, the Frisco Angels and the Oakland Angels, and they were going to meet. And the place where everything was going to happen was the street that separated Oakland from Berkeley. The border, border. And so the cops were all there en masse. And the protesters, the peaceniks, were coming down marching toward it, and the Hells Angels were going to wait. And when they got near the border, the Hells Angels were going to stop up and beat up on anyone that tried to cross over. And so the cops had gotten word of this, so that's why they were all there. Because they were all, it's our chance. Because now they were going to get in there and be able to beat up on the Angels and the protesters both.
Oh, my God. Jesus. Man.
So we're talking about this in their clubhouse, and in comes Allen Ginsberg. He was trying to catch up with Kesey and me and get part of the scene. And he comes in there and he sees what's going on. We're all drinking, getting high, and arm wrestling and beating up on each other. And he gets in there and he starts ding, 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 ding with his bells. And he sits down on the floor and he starts, ding, 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 ding. These guys, they tripping out. They're sitting there, and pretty soon they're all sitting there watching him like that, all that. And so Kesey and I slid out because we had to go get ready. And so, here we are back again in Berkeley, and the crowd is marching to the boundary. and they get there and nothing happens. They just march on through and walk on through. And Keith and I look at each other. What? We thought we were going to see a big dust up, and so we headed out over to the Angels Club, and they're all in there lounging around, getting high, listening to music. And we say, "What happened?" And Tiny the Tramp says, "Ah, shit," he says, "we sat there all night long, high, watching that naked little Jew sit cross-legged on the floor. Ding, 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 oh." He says, by morning, he says, we had no more urge to go beat up on anybody than anything else, so we just went home and crashed.
He put the peace vibe on him, and it went away. Wow.
Wow. How amazing is that?
Oh, my God. That's so crazy.
That is so wild. You know, it's so funny too. Like I remember Ken telling me a story when I was out there about when Anton LaVey and his crew, the Satanists, the Church of Satan,
right,
came to visit you guys.
Yeah.
But you could tell the story probably way better. But do you remember what happened? What he did?
Well, as I remembered, he brought a chicken, and they were a live chicken, and they were going to sacrifice it.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
And so we all said, "Oh, really?" And so, okay, so we got out the hatchet and the chopping block, and when you kill a chicken like that, you got to put a string around that chicken's head, so you pull it real tight. And the other person's holding his feet, and then you hit him. And that you let go of the chicken, and he go running across the ground, blood just shooting out of his neck. So see, the LaVey guys didn't know that was all going to happen. I think they had done it in a different way. So there went the chicken out across Kesey's yard. They all went home.
And we beat them at their own game.
Yeah, I know. And so it worked out good for us because we ate the chicken.
Did it the old farmer way, man.
That's right. I don't know. I've done it many times, man.
I've seen the old ladies like grab it by the head and then they just swing it around and it's like it breaks its neck.
It breaks its neck, yeah.
I know.
That's old school.
That's really old school.
My grandfather did it once. I watched him do it once and watched that chicken run around, and like I still see it. I can still picture it.
You can't unsee that.
Can't unsee that.
I know. Hey, that's really neat is that you have certain things that you see that are burned into your brain that you can always, if you want to see them again, you can see them again. That's really
Isn't it
great.
amazing?
That's a great trip to be able to do that.
Yeah.
These kind of things should be taught in school. Kids, how to do that.
Yeah.
How to cut chickens' heads off and watch them run around. I'm just kidding.
No.
How to hold on to the memories
the picture of it.
I'm just messing.
Yeah, I know. Well, I can mess.
Well, Ken, you know what's funny, Ken, is that a lot of schools now, not a lot, but I know in Oakland, they're using transcendental meditation as a form of, they're calling it quiet time, because I think that quiet time is maybe a little bit more palpable than transcendental meditation when you're a parent.
Yeah.
So they're using that in the mornings and in the afternoons, and they're finding that, crime's going down, graduations are going up, dropouts are going down, violent crimes are going down, and creativity, like these kids are coming out like firing on all cylinders.
Well, that's the one thing about the COVID is that people rise to the occasion. This is another thing you learn on acid and the dead and all that is no matter what happened, you rise to it and you lift it up out of whatever it is and make it turn it into something positive. And so that's what people are learning to do with the COVID, with the kids at home and and not going anywhere, and the way we're doing this and building things, and getting out and using your hands. And, there's so many, it opens your imagination. And that's what, please people, all open your imaginations to the COVID and dig it. You are living in a wonderful time, as bad as it is. It's something like never happened before, and we're in the middle of it.
Yeah. It's funny because when I think of like the kind of right wing, bootstraps, American spirit, like I'm actually down with that the way I see it like happening on the lot. That to me, that's like bootstraps. That's like we
The
find a
deadheads.
way to do whatever. Yeah, and the lot you build something, build it, and just make it, just do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And to me, they don't see it that way, but I'm like, there's your American spirit, there's your bootstraps, there's your pioneer spirit, there's your all that stuff as uniquely American.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is what's important about America. All that bullshit about America break, like America has always been great and will always be great because of the actual place of America. Yeah. It works on us and it helps us to be a certain way. And this whole thing about people trying to mess up words like patriot, like the worst, awfulest guys call themselves patriots. Well, maybe they are patriotic to something, but you know, the true American patriot, is not like that. The true American patriot will stand up for what's right, and fight for what's right, but he won't go off with a deep end and pick on other people in any way.
Yeah, well, it's like conservative. I consider myself a conservative.
Absolutely.
I want to conserve American education.
Yes.
I want to conserve American health.
Yes.
I want to conserve American land.
Yes.
And natural resources.
Yes.
I want to conserve American arts. I want to conserve, conserve
human rights. Yeah.
I want to conserve human rights and equality. And wow, man. I want to conserve American peace.
Yeah.
See,
very good.
We're proud.
Conservators.
The conservators.
That's a new party. The conservatator.
The conservators of common sense. That's our party. That's it.
Because we don't want to be the other thing. You know what you get when you combine a penis and a potato?
What's that?
A dictator.
Very true. Very true.
I know, and we've seen a few examples.
Yes, we have.
Oh, if we could only make that hat.
That's our merch. That's going to be the merch coming. We've been Oteil and I in tandem have been listening to the Ram Dass audiobook. And there's a lot of talk about, Leary and his group and the pranksters and how there was kind of like this. It's very interesting when you listen to the
conflict,
little East Coast, West Coast.
Actually, it was never a conflict. Somebody else created that myth of the conflict. It's different, definitely different. Two sides of the same coin. They were meditative. We were out in the world, activated. They were meditative and we were activated.
Right.
And, two different things. And we were a shock when we came in there because they had just stayed up all night on LSD and we were kind of coming down on the porch and we come roaring in with the bus with the speakers going and Cassidy blaring out over the thing and we throw out this green smoke grenade or blue or I can't remember. I think it was green, yeah. And it enveloped the house and all that.
We're here.
I know. So
put on the coffee.
I know, but it was Ram Dass himself who came out to see us and said, we're coming down from Ohio and all that. He says, we have this pond down there just over that little hill. He says, it was a hot day already. And he said, why don't you go over there and cool off in the water for a little bit and then come on back up. And we did. And then we all had, soybeans and rice and various veggies for lunch and stayed the night there, camped out on the lawn and everything. And the next day, we were about to leave and Ram Dass says, hey, he says, come here. He says, I want you to come here a minute. So he took us behind the house and Leary was there. Now, Leary had not shown himself the whole time we were there.
That's what Ram Dass was saying, yeah.
Yeah, and he says, I'm sorry. He says, I was down with a cold. He says, I got a new girlfriend. And he says, so I had to stay away from it. He said, but now I want to talk to you guys straight and let you know that I can see that you guys are the flamboyant out in the world acid heads and we're the introspective acid heads. He says, but we are doing the same thing. He says, and we will continue to work together and do the same thing. Oh, God, we were so glad to hear that. We shook hands and all that and left. And it was true. From then on, we did stuff with Leary for as long as he lived, different things. We even went to an Oregon Duck football game. And Leary
oh, really?
Oh, yeah, because I had a boy that was playing on the team. And so Keezy and I took Leary to the game. And after the game, we went over to this house where my son lived with another guy on the team. And, the college athletes, but, sharp guys. And I looked and they were sitting on the couch, each on one side of Leary and a whole group of them all around them, all football players. Wow. And just, talking to Leary, dealing with him. And I heard this loud noise in the kitchen. I went in there and my son's buddy, the last play of the game, we were beating UCLA and they threw a long pass for a touchdown. And my son's buddy was guarding that guy. And he let the guy get behind him. And so in the kitchen, the guy's dad is just screaming at him. How could you do that? You blew that play. You are the worst dumb fuck football player ever existed, and all that. And he says, "What have you got to say for yourself?" And the guy says, "Did you know Timothy Leary is sitting in the other room talking to these guys?"
Yeah, take that, Dad.
yeah. What was all that noise? All that was the air coming out of a punctured balloon.
Totally. That's amazing. That's so amazing.
Oh, I love it, man.
It's interesting to think about and read it and hear about how Leary. I share a birthday with Leary, so I kind of follow that, learned about him that way, and then getting to know Ken. And it seems like Ken and you guys were very this is our thing, and if you want to come play, we got the playground for you.
Oh yeah.
Where the other guys
is our playground.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's the beautiful thing about being inclusive. It's really the greatest thing about the early acid test days with the band, with the Grateful Dead, was the fact that there was never really a stage. There'd maybe be a little platform, but a lot of times it was just on the floor.
Yeah.
And at these acid tests, people would be wandering around. They'd be in amongst the instruments and back and all that. There was no backstage, front stage, or any of that stuff, and just everything just kept going. And then when there were breaks, people would be up there playing instruments, their own instruments, or doing a little rap or a little song or something like that. So there was room for everybody to be part of the scene at those acid tests. And it's really what shaped a lot of the culture of the heads in San Francisco and spread out to how to have parties and how to do shows and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, if you remember, you didn't remember, I don't think, the Trips Festival, a 3-day festival in San Francisco, which celebrated all the acid trips that were going all over the city. People come up to me and say to me, "Oh, you were the guys that started it all. You were the guys." I said, "Bullshit, we were not." Like Keezy said, there was a tsunami came in, and when it came in, it covered the whole coast and moved all the way across. And when he said this, I think it was in about the 70s sometime, he says, "It's all the way to Kansas now."
Rising tide.
Yeah, and it was like Meatball. That Crumb cartoon of Meatball coming down and hitting everything. He says that's the way it was when acid hit. He says it was like Meatball. It hit everybody. It hit everything. It hit the animals. It hit the plants. It hit the earth. It hit the rocks. It hit the water. He says, now everything is psychedelicized.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't illegal back then.
That's right. Thank God. And when it became illegal in California, we were doing the acid tests in California then, and it was a Saturday night. And this guy, it wasn't a real acid test. This guy, this photographer, was doing a photo shoot for Life magazine on the LSD issue. And they wanted us to do an acid test and photograph it, and it would be on the cover of Life magazine. And so we were down in LA with the hog farmers then too, doing all this stuff. And so everybody got their shit together and they got all dressed up in all their clothes and their costumes and everything. And they went and the music was playing and everybody's dancing, the strobe lights going and everything. And this photographer, I wish I could remember his name. He was a real jerk, but he became quite famous. But anyway, he's screaming at him, okay, now, no, jump up and down, now, twirl, you know, and stuff like that.
Yikes.
And so as it was approaching midnight, when LSD would become illegal, for one thing, everybody was high. Yeah, that was one thing that was good. So everybody was kind of going along with it, not pummeling the guy. Who's that three-toed sloth up there? You don't know that shit. So anyway, I went and tapped all the pranksters on the shoulder and said, let's go out on the bus. And so before this, Kesey had been busted for a pot, he and Mountain Girl, up on the roof of a building at night one night. And then Kesey got busted again. And so it was coming up for his sentence. He was going to be sentenced to go to jail because he was found something, I don't know. He admitted he had pot. So he faked his suicide. He had his cousin who looked like him go down to the ocean and leave Kesey's shoes there with a note in it. Goodbye, cruel world. I can't go through this agony of the thought of four walls enclosing my spirit, which is hammering to get into the minds of judges who are so mean as to send potheads to jail. And so he then jumped in the truck with Ron Boise and they drove to Mexico. And the next day, all the headlines were Kesey commits suicide. You know, and so this brings us back to an earlier point, why I was bringing this all up.
Oh, when they made LSD illegal.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah, it's midnight, and there's a jerk photographer.
Thank you. I'd have got back to it. Yeah. But I don't know if we had the time.
It would take your time.
We'll make it.
Yeah.
Oh, God, who's going to do supper?
I'll order a pizza for you.
All right. So anyway, okay, back to there we are at that crazy party, and we're all on the bus. And I said, okay, in another 4 minutes, LSD is going to be illegal. I says, my plan is to take the bus and go to Mexico and hook up with Kesey. I said, so all you guys, you know, we're all in the same gang. We're all in this together. You shake one end, you're going to rock the other, brother. And so they say, okay. So we headed out. And we met up with Kesey and Matamoros, and we figured out we'd get a place, and we got a place on the beach at Manzanilla and stayed down there for 6 months. Our visas were up. And we had that was like one of the best things that could have happened to all of us. Being down there, we had two houses right next to each other. We were in the ocean all the time in this beautiful little town and everything. We had a rat shack set up in which we had all our instruments and everything. And by then we were making really good tapes. Everything was reel-to-reel tapes because we were good at making up stories and using our instruments to embellish the stories and putting it on tape. And then we were good at overdubbing, where we'd listen with earphones and all add on to the thing. And really able to do a polished, really super 2-track stereo audio tape, reel to reel. And all those boxes of tapes, or that box of all those tapes, Sunshine Kesey has them all now. Because they were just sitting in Kesey's old barn, and after he died, nobody wanted to mess with him. So they were there, and someday somebody's going to go through them, and find the stuff. Yeah, some of the stuff we did down there in Mexico was really good, really good. It was so inventive. I mean, Kesey was, well, he and Cassidy both, and Cassidy was there too with us in Mexico. He showed up down there. He stayed down there with us all the time, But Kesey was really good at carrying a made-up story along with plots and characters and dialogue and everything. And I was pretty good at it too, and Cassidy and everything. So we would make up these things and add our instruments to them. And there's nothing like them at all. Even though now they'll probably seem quaint.
Love to hear 'em.
Well, it's one of the things
I know,
too.
I would too. I'd like to be able to get some of that stuff out, but what we're really dealing with is time. Is that time keeps on slipping into the future for sure. And I look around here and I see all this stuff I'm working on all the time and everything. And then I say, no, I'd like to go do those tapes. And I go, wait a minute, who's going to do all this other stuff? Who's going to feed the cow or the chickens and walk the dog?
Walk the dog.
Send out books. I made a dumb move of selling books on Facebook. So every week I have to package up books and mail them out.
I can come out there and help you out. I'll tell you, that'd be something I would like to be a part of. But, because the thing that was so incredible in studying you guys before I even met you, middle school, high school, learning about the pranksters through the Grateful Dead's story, was you documented everything. You guys taped everything. You always had recorders going. You always had a microphone. Everybody had a microphone.
Yeah.
And that's so wild because it's like when you see even some of the little snippets of stuff of like, in those documentaries they go, and Ken Kesey and his band of merry pranksters took the bus across, and then you hear like, we are in the acid tests, like from all angles. And it was just like this beautiful kind of language that you guys spoke, and it was all recorded.
Yes.
And that was so exciting to like.
Oh, we were very egotistical. We thought what we were doing was the cat's meow. We thought that we would be famous and great and be making millions of dollars, particularly with our movie that we shot. That's what it is. We even moved after all the verbal or vocal recordings into the camera, first the 16 millimeter, and now with the video camera. So we thought we'd have a movie that would play in the big theaters and all that, but of course we always fucked it up. And Kesey says, this is our saving grace. I said, what are you talking about? He says, is that we fail and we don't become this thing that we had in our minds of being, and we just become us back on the farm, taking care of the kids and going to high school football games and climbing Mount Pisgah on Easter and all that. And I said, yeah, but you know why that is? He says, why? I says, because we're rubes, he says, and the shysters always are taking the rubes, for whatever they got. And I said, but it's okay. He says, why is that okay? I says, because we are God's chosen rubes.
Totally true.
I said, we fuck up and go blew me back to the home, and next thing you know, we're having a great time. And we're happy, and, we look back on these things and we think, holy mackerel, that's one of the best things that happened. And you turn it into a story. It becomes one of your best stories of how you fuck up, and these other guys are taking advantage of it. But you come out on top at the
end. Yeah. Mike pointed out before when Bob Weir mentioned how Jerry was jealous of Kesey and, you guys that could like go back into not being so famous, like you can't shake it. If the movie had been on the big screen and you guys were, you could never shake it.
Right. So, yeah, really.
I had a chance to, when I met Bob after Kesey passed, and I said to him, I met him at a show, and I said I had the chance to spend some time with Ken, at his farm, and Bobby's eyes like lit up, and he was like, Jerry always was jealous of the fact that Kesey could step into the limelight, twist everything a couple degrees, and then head back to Oregon and retreat. And that Jerry had to kind of do that with the drugs and hotel rooms and, hide out because everybody wanted a piece of him,
Oh, yeah, really. Yeah, because Kesey said, he says, yeah, you can be famous and be in the spotlight. He says, but you got to know that spotlight has crosshairs on it. Mm-hmm. And it's zeroing in on you all the time. He says, it's a dangerous place to be. And even to the fact that like John Lennon gets it. And, but I'm really glad that we're not famous. I mean, we have a lot of friends and we have a lot of fans, but we're not, I don't even want to be in a cover of, some magazine or, you know, or had videos done about me or anything. No, I'd rather deal with our own people. And if we can enlighten others and raise them up to understanding and, and dig the scene, well, that's fine too. In fact, that's great. In fact, the more the merrier.
That's one of the things
There's
I think
no walls on this room.
No doors on the bus. There's a difference between being famous and being important. You know what I mean? Like, are you giving something? Like, what's your intention? We talked about it last night with a guest we had on. That's like, it's about the intention.
Well, and you can be important to everybody, little kids, all people, and everything. One of the great things about Kesey, the way he was the same with everybody he met, no matter their station in life. I mean, he talked to every homeless guy on the street when we were walking down through Eugene. And then he talked to really important people. I'll tell you, one of the best ones he talked to was, at one time, Esquire magazine had a thing in their issue, which the 50 greatest Americans now. And Kesey was one of the 50. And so they had this big dinner in New York City at this fancy place, and all the 50 people were there. And Kesey was able to meet Muhammad Ali. And
wow.
I know, he looked for him. He wanted to talk to him.
Yeah.
And so he goes up to Ali and he says, he says, I really respect you. He says, you're a great poet. And Ali goes, he says that fly like a bumblebee, sting like a bumblebee, fly like a wasp or whatever. He says, that's not poetry. I just made that up. And Kesey says, no, he says, that wasn't your poem. He says, your poem was when you refused to go in the army and did not step across that line. And they asked you why. You said, no Kong ever called me nigger.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that, man. We all
amazing.
Yeah.
That's really.
And paid the price so heavy at that time for it.
Yeah.
So heavy, man.
Yeah, but it never brought him down.
No. Because he is the greatest.
Greatest.
Well,
it's like when he won the gold medal in the Olympics and something happened and he was pissed off and he threw in the Ohio River between Kentucky and Ohio. Threw it away.
And that's when he was still Cassius Clay.
Yes, right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Go ahead.
I said, I can't remember what happened, but something happened to him at the Olympics that pissed him off.
Yeah.
That he threw it away.
I think with Kesey too, one of the things that like Demon Box to me is one of the best books, like my favorite of his, because it's this collection of stories. And there's a statue of him in downtown Eugene, right? Reading to children.
Uh-huh.
That's the statue. It's not him with a hit of acid on his tongue. It's not him standing on the top of the bus somewhere. It's him reading to children and probably reading.
Those are his grandchildren.
It's grandchildren.
Probably actual people. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing with those children in that statue. I think are that's literal and figurative. Because
I'll tell you something funny about that statue of Kesey. He's there holding a book. So all the time, if you go through this, it's in Kesey Square there in downtown Eugene. And you go through there, there'll be pages in that book, paper pages, and you can go over and read them. And there's something that somebody wrote and put in there. And it's changing all the time. People are doing that.
That's amazing.
That's great.
I used to, one of my ex, that's so fantastic.
I know, that's real art. That's people art. That's happening, changing, not static or anything like that.
Constantly living.
I remember I asked, when I was with him, I asked him what his favorite book was, and he said the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
Kesey did?
Yeah, he said the Holy Bible. That was his favorite book.
You know why? Because of the stories.
Yeah.
Right.
They're all great stories, super stories. You guys ever hear of, what's his name? Lord Buckley, from the famous rapper from Chicago? Did all the stories in his loud, gravelly voice and hip jargon.
Yeah.
He did this one where they were having a big old blast off in the Coliseum where hey, Christians and the Lions are going to go on it, and all the Coliseum back, and here come Nero with his bevy of beauties following up to the main, right in front row, looking down on there, and across the sand came this big old lion chasing this Christian going lickety-split, and the Christian cat leaps up and he grabs the wall right in front of Nero, and he slips down into the mouth and gets eaten up. Silence in the Coliseum. Nero stand up. He slapped the wall and he say, "Mark a golden spike where that cat blew." So
amazing.
So I tell that. My wife was a high school English teacher, AP English, and she always made me come in and talk to her class. And so I would tell them that Kesey didn't graduate from Oregon in English, but no, in dramatic art. And they had to do a performance at the end of the year to pass their thing. And he did Lord Buckley. He did that just story I just said. And I said, I told the kids that. He had to do Lord Buckley. And then I'd do that. And when I'd get done telling that, the kids would, "Mark the golden spike where that cat blew." They were stunned. They didn't know what to make of it. They didn't know whether to laugh.
Run out of the room.
I know. And my wife would always say, "Why do you tell them that story?" I said, "Because I just love that reaction."
So, Colonel Bruce.
Yeah, Colonel Bruce. Yeah, that's good. I like Colonel Bruce.
One of my exes was a elementary school teacher, and each year I would go read the kids Big Double the Bear versus Little Tricker the Squirrel, which is a children's story, Oteil, that Kesey wrote, and it's man. I mean, what an amazing, but I would get into it because the way that Kesey wrote was so musical, and like the way that you tell stories, Ken, it's the same, where it's like it rolls, it's like it's rolling downhill, but it's like rhythmic, and you can get into that, and the buttermilk rolled out right out of the bear's mouth, and the squirrel's like, I can also trick, and the whole, and you can get into it, and the kids would absolutely love it.
It's a true kid story. He learned it from his grandmother Smith, and back in Arkansas, sitting on his grandmother's knee. She told him that story, and it turned into not only the book, but him performing it across the country, a big
amazing
in New York City with the band and the Thunder Machine.
Yeah.
Thunder Machine. Okay, tell me about the Thunder Machine.
I got to play the Thunder Machine, dude. It was
amazing.
amazing.
I haven't heard about this.
Ken, tell him about the Thunder Machine.
Okay, well, we had this friend, Ron Boise, who was the guy that drove Kesey to Mexico. He had a van and then all his welding equipment, torches and all that. And he would go to junkyards and he'd cut the hoods and the fenders and the trunks off of cars, and he'd get those things and he'd shape them into sculptures. And he had these 13 sculptures he did, which were the Kama Sutra, of all these men and women, all done with these metal parts, and absolutely gorgeous. But anyway, he made this Thunder Machine for Kesey out of these car parts. And I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of it, but it's shaped kind of like a submarine, where it's circular like this, and it's got this conical thing in the middle that comes up, and a person can sit in the middle and look out, and it's got windows there. And in that is keyboards and the machines to make the weird sounds and all that, and a microphone, and there's speakers coming out of this ends of it. And whoever's in there can talk and everything. And then outside are strings hooked to it, guitar strings and that, and they're ding dong dong. You can do that with them, and then you can bong 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 on the side, boom 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 boom. So all this is going. So people are standing around and playing all these things, and somebody's in the middle. And then he's also got a hose coming out of it that I can hook to my trombone. So I'm out here playing my trombone without a bell, and it's all coming out of the Thunder Machine.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I know we've done
dude,
that.
It's so cool.
We did that a time or two, or three or four, with the Grateful Dead up on stage with them, and doing a whole number with all them playing and us doing the Thunder Machine. There's one online. There's actually a YouTube.
I gotta see that.
Oh, it's the greatest.
I think there's a YouTube of it of when we were at the U of O at MacArthur Court, University of Oregon, Grateful Dead concert. Like, I don't know what year it was, 80s something maybe. But anyway, it's,
we'll look
it's out there.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, just Google it.
So you knew Colonel Bruce, huh? Colonel Bruce Hampton?
No, I didn't know him personally, but he's one of my favorite guys. What was the name of his band?
The Hampton Grease Band. That album was called Music to Eat.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I had that. I had 2 of his CDs. I played them all the time, and I can't find them now. Damn it! I can't.
Yeah, talk about that album, man. To find that record, it's a double album on Columbia. It's so expensive now. It's like a collector's item.
Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, because the Colonel never did any drugs. I think my theory is that whatever produces DMT in your brain, like his spigot was just on. So he was tripping really hard, but just naturally.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a great coincidence that he happened to be born when the 60s hit. So.
Yes, that's right. Fit right in.
Yeah, he was like, woo! Everybody gets it, or some of them do anyway.
The Natch. He was the Natch. On the Natural.
That's right. Oh.
That was such a trip when I came out to visit. How all the instruments were in the barn, and we were able to play like the axophone, and Keezy had theremin. It's a saxophone that was shaped like an axe for Twister.
Yeah, it had a kazoo in it.
A kazoo,
A kazoo. And George Walker plays that all the time. Oh my God, it's awful.
Theremins all over the place. I mean, it was so fun to coming out. I'm like, I remember I had a list of questions for Ken, and the second he started talking, I crumpled up that piece of paper and threw it out in his bathroom. I was I'm just going to listen. I'm not going to. And Ken, I don't know if you remember this, but I hounded you for a couple of months afterwards because I left a tape recorder stuffed in his couch cushions.
Huh.
And I was like, does anybody happen to know where it is? And you're like, listen, that tape it's gone. It's gone. Just let it go.
Yeah, let it go is right.
Yeah, because I was sat there, we had smoked, and we start talking, and he starts talking about the original CIA LSD experiments and G. Gordon Liddy and the whole thing. And he looks over at me and he goes, "Are you recording this? This is really good stuff." And I go, "No." And he goes, "Go get your tape recorder." And I ran in and grabbed it, and there was just a whole bunch of great stuff that just got left. But I guess that was for a reason, you know? I mean,
well,
it was,
not only that, but when we went into the couch, there's been so much other kind of stuff that's been buried in that couch. It goes down under the barn, and it's a big pile of shit down there.
I know. Jesus, I don't even...
One day, like 100 years from now, they're going to excavate behind the barn and be like, you're not going to believe what's in here.
Time capsule.
Time capsules, right? Well, one of the most unbelievable experiences of that visit was we were out back where the original bus is just kind of like settling back into the earth, and it's all covered with moss.
Yeah.
Keezy didn't want it. What did the Smithsonian wanted it, and he decided he just wanted to leave it on the farm, and he started to chip the moss off the paint, and like the organic material in the moss somehow brightened up the original paint job.
Sure did.
So like as we chipped paint off, it was brighter, and to see Ken light up and get so jazzed about it, and we started chipping paint off. It was so fun, and it was just like, what an unbelievable experience to have this moment here with him, you know?
And not only that, but that paint was like 8, 10, 12 layers thick. So you chip stuff off, and then there'd be another layer under it. You never really got down to the metal.
Yeah.
Well, I know it was a shame that the bus got pulled out of there. It was beautiful down there. It was like Keezy said. He says, "We'll leave it here and let it rust in peace." And that's the way it should have. But there's another thing happened, and what the hell? Life goes on, even for the bus.
Well, we definitely want to make sure that we can help, plug and promote the book in any way possible. So when the publishing stuff gets ironed out, would you please come back on maybe, and we can help share, where people can get a hold of it?
Yeah, just email you or something, say, let's Zoom, the book's happening, something like that.
Absolutely.
I guess message is the best. I think
anything you want. Yeah, I'm always happy to to see you. And I can't thank you enough for the hospitality when I came out to visit, in 2019 or whatever it was. Feels like 100 years ago, but and thank you for the time today.
Oh, good. Oh, yeah, this is a great time. Thank you too, Oteil. Yeah,
good to see
talking
you,
to you. Yeah, good, really good talking to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait till we can all be at a Dead and Company concert together, hanging out. Oh man, it's gonna be good stuff.
Oh, me either. I'll get up and play my trombone.
Fantastic.
So Phil and Bobby came with their band and did a show here in Eugene outside one summer. And I was talking to Bobby beforehand, and it's time to go, and he had to go up these steps to go on the stage, and I just hung back, and Bob said, no, come on. So I go up there, and all the band members are there, and Bobby, and then across the stage, Phil walks in and joins, and Bob pulls out the paper. He says, okay, what do you think about the set list? And Phil looks at it, and he says, it's pretty good. And I says, hey, wait a minute. I said, where do I play? What song do I play my trombone on? And Phil looked at me, and he says, all of them. I said, oh, God, I can't. I don't have the wind.
I love it.
That's amazing. Ken, thank you so much for spending time with us, man. You're amazing.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Very good.
Catch you next time, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, bye.